Are you a thoughtful leader? Maybe you are. Maybe you think you are. Let's find out. I'm Mindy Gibbins-Klein. I'm author of The Thoughtful Leader and host of the Thoughtful Leader podcast. Thoughtful leadership is all about thought leadership that goes above and beyond. Thought leadership that is truly new and original, exciting, disruptive, maybe even groundbreaking. Because let's face it, we need to raise the bar. My guests and I are absolutely obsessed with finding truly original thought leadership, and I'm going to bring you so many exciting ideas and opportunities, things for you to think about, and chances for you to push your thinking that you'll be very glad you tuned in. So thanks so much for checking out Thoughtful Leadership and the Thoughtful Leader podcast. I look forward to connecting with you very, very soon. Welcome to the show. My guest today is the amazing thoughtful leader, Bill Welter. We've only met recently, but he made such an impression on me. This man has so much experience and wisdom to share, and he's a really good example of being a thoughtful leader, which is why he was invited onto the show. So welcome, Bill.
Well, thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
You really, really made an impression on me. We were part of a conference call and we didn't know each other at all. And everything you said was so thoughtful. So I wondered if you actually knew about thoughtful leadership or if you just exuded.
Well, I have to admit, I did not have your book. I have it now, by the way. And part of this is here's the advantage. I'm an OOG, official old guy. And so through the course of 4 careers, I spent time in the Marine Corps, both enlisted and officer. I spent time doing honest-to-goodness engineering inside of a factory. I spent a whole bunch of years doing consulting work. And now I've spent time both writing and running workshops and things such as that. So you add those all up, and I guess I've learned a little bit about thoughtfulness along the way.
Well, it's great. Some people can be exposed to it and somehow not pick it up or embody it. But we're not talking about them. We're talking about you today. And people want to hear from you. They want that wisdom. You know, why should everybody else have to go through everything that you've been through, or anything for that matter, and when they can learn from your experiences? So let's dive right in with some, what I think are very cool questions.
Okay.
The first one has to do with your service, your time. I cannot remember how many years you said you were in the service.
5 years.
Right. What were the biggest leadership lessons that you learned during that time?
Good one. Okay, so here's a quick background on that. I dropped out of college in 1966 and enlisted in the Marine Corps, which was a interesting move at the time. But I had an opportunity after about a year to go to officers candidate school. So I went through enlisted training and all the rest of that stuff. And then I had a chance to go to officers candidate school. And my father came to my commissioning. Now, my father was a World War II Army veteran. And I'm expecting the old Sarge to give his son this snappy salute. And instead, the old Sarge walks up to me and he starts poking his finger into my chest like I'm his kid of all things. And he says, "Your only job is to take care of your troops, and they'll take care of you." That piece of advice from a man who got no farther than 8th grade was the best piece of advice on thoughtful leadership that I ever came across. If you take care of your people, they will take care of you. And I've been on a rant recently about executive pay, and that's a separate subject up unto itself. But that was the thing I got out of the service. And then the other thing I got out of the service was in my time in Vietnam. There was a period of time when I was serving with, and basically our lives depended upon each other. I had a coal miner from Appalachia. I had a black that had gone through the Watts riots. I had the son of a judge in my unit. It was a tremendous mix of people, and it was just fascinating. And what you realize is you're all human. If you take care of each other, you end up taking care of each other.
Wow. And that was X number of years ago, and it still rings true today. So thank you so much for reminding us about this. So the thoughtful leadership lessons that we talk about here, that our guests bring, they're not sort of groundbreaking new ideas. They're reminders of what we know, because I think we all do know how to be thoughtful. It's just some people don't seem to pay attention to their conscience or whatever it is. Without being negative, why do you think some people aren't thoughtful when they have the capacity to be thoughtful?
Interesting question. When you think about that, I think, and I came across a term a while back that is just stuck in my head, and the issue is amygdala hijacking. I never could say the word right. In other words, the emotions get in the way, and you just get angry, or you get frustrated, or things such as that. And I think we don't spend the time to sit back and take the time to be thoughtful at times. We just go ahead and we go run with our emotions. I've had that problem in the past. I have got a very quick temper, and every now and then, I can't remember the young lady that I was talking to. She's a pilot, and she said, one of the things that when they get into a tough situation, that we talk to each other and we'll say, it's time to wind your watch. In other words, take the time before you jump into the action. And so that's stuck with me for a little bit. But I think emotion is it. And then for sometimes we're not thoughtful simply because, it's still maybe emotion. We want it our way. It's, doggone it. I'm right. You're wrong. Thank you very much. Goodbye. So that's my 2 cents.
And very valuable 2 cents it is as well. 2 pence over here. So we have read, I shouldn't say we, I know you have. I'll talk about this figure that I've read about, which is when something happens, we have 25 milliseconds. So not even 1 full second before respond or react in some way. I'm sure you've heard that figure because it's all over personal development. And that doesn't seem a whole lot of time. So I think also it's about practicing this on a regular basis, getting better every time, and recognizing when we're not behaving the way we want to. Would you agree? It's old-fashioned behavior.
Well, I think the issue there is really one of if we built up the practice of listening before we opened our mouth, we'd be better off. And so listening forces us to take some time. So, yes, I agree.
Funny enough, when I started this podcast, and we are now 19 months into it, maybe 20, I wasn't sure that I could listen to my guests well enough to do the interviews the way I wanted to, because I have a really high standard for myself. And I knew that when it was my episodes, I could talk about the subject, no problem. It's the being on the other side of it, listening to my guests, that I've found actually really rewarding. It's not as challenging as I thought it would be because of my intention. And we talk about that a lot on the show. When you have the right intention, then yes, you'll be bothered to do the work, practice, get better, recognize when you haven't behaved the way you want, and do a bit of course correction, to use the pilot analogy. And so this is really available to all of us. And in my opinion, it comes down to intention. So what have been some intentions that you've had throughout your career, including now, as you're mostly writing and doing training and exploring new stuff?
So the issue of intention, I'm going to back up a little bit and talk in terms of a an opportunity to write a book. And so the opportunity came out in the early 2000s. I was wondering why I'm sitting this while I was still in my consulting career. I used to wonder, why am I sitting in this conference room across the table from a woman and a man who both have better educations than I do, Harvard MBA or Stanford MBA or Cambridge or whatever the case may be. And I came across Louis Pasteur's quote of chance favors a prepared mind. And then I started wondering, what the heck is a prepared mind? And then I started looking for skills. And so when we think in terms of skills that are sitting out there, and skills basically, back to your point of intention, they don't happen by accident. They happen because you say, I need this skill and I will develop the skill. I can read every book in the world on tennis and I'll never be able to play the game until I get out on the court and I do something. So in the world of skills, and you think in terms of thoughtfulness, three skills kind of they form a Venn diagram for me. I think we need to spend some time developing the skill of challenging. And that's a two-sided skill. You have to be willing to challenge others and you have to be willing to be challenged. So challenging is one of the skills that I think underlies thoughtfulness. Another one is we have to sit back and develop the skill of reflecting. And reflection is this honest appraisal, and I make it very simple. What was my role in the failure? We're all willing to talk about our role in success, but real reflection takes time to sit back and say, boy, something bad happened. What was my role in that? And then the third one is ongoing learning. We need to continually, I'm an OOG, official old guy, and I still have to continually read books and pick up new things. And so I think the issue of intention, it really comes back to the intention to build a skill set that will take us into the future.
Absolutely. And people need to care enough to do those three things in the Venn diagram.
Oh, yeah.
Or else they won't do them. And, that's a choice. And I'm fond of saying leadership is a choice. Thought leadership is a choice. Thoughtful leadership is definitely a choice. We make choices every moment of our lives, and you've made some really good ones. And I don't know about your failures because they're not in your bio. Should we put failures in our bios, by the way?
Actually, it would be worth. Think in terms of the. If I stay with the United States metaphor of Silicon Valley, some people will brag over about my failures. I just started this business and it didn't work, and I started this business and it didn't work, and then look, this fantastic business I have right now. And so, and I think part of the issue of failure is to look upon it as an experience that you've had that you can build upon. So one of the stories that I tell, now I don't put it in my official bio, but I make no bones about it, is when I went back to Ernst and Young, which was I had been with them when they were Ernst and Ernst. I was there when they were Ernst and Winnie. I left them for 10 years. I came back to Ernst and Young. And I was not happy and I was not doing well. And I finally went into the managing partner and I said, Mac, fire me. And Mac turned around. He was a good enough friend. He said, okay, Willie, you're fired in 6 months. Now let's work you out of here. And so what we did is I recognized I was not doing any good for the firm. It was not doing any good for me. And it was just an opportunity. That was when I went out on my own. And that was 1993. And I've paid all my bills since then. I've been on my own. And sometimes failures are actually the stepping stone to success.
Absolutely right. Failures sometimes, maybe every time, are the stepping stones to success. And on the previous episode, I can't remember which one, I brought up the phrase that we use in NLP, there is no failure, only feedback. Although, using the word failure, it's a lot more accessible and people know what you're talking about. Yeah. So in most people's minds, there is failure as in not succeeding. However, ultimately, that can lead to success if you step back and reflect, learn from it, figure out what you need to learn, back to that Venn diagram with the skills. Mm-hmm. And people have to care enough to do that. The thing about thoughtful leadership, which because we've been talking and you've got the book, is it's about both types of thoughtfulness. It's about the, kind of pensive, putting thought into things, and the caring aspect. And the reason why English, I think, has two meanings for the same word is because you actually have to care enough in order to put that thought in. Because let's face it, it takes extra effort, it takes a bit of time. Maybe it takes somebody to challenge you or challenge yourself to really be that thoughtful leader, to transcend the obvious 25 millisecond reaction and be responsible, as they say. That, I don't know, not everybody chooses to care, or maybe they don't know how. Which is it?
Oh, wow. It's actually both, I would say. There will be quick side tangent. I am now going through a series of interviews with principals of grade schools and high schools, because the Gen Alpha is our future workforce. And it's kind of interesting when you think in terms of either, to the point of your question, they may not know how to do it because they've never been treated that way. And the flip side of that is I would look at some people that have basically been, to use the phrase, born with a silver spoon in their mouth. And they just think, well, this is the way it is. Everybody is got all the benefits that I've got. Well, it's not the case, and they may not care. So I think it's both sides to your question.
So we believe at The Thoughtful Leader that you can learn to care and you can teach others to care. It's probably one of our most contentious topics because people think that it's binary. You care or you don't care. And there's probably a sliding scale or some kind of continuum where, you care more about certain things, you care less, but, you can still be a caring person. But the interesting thing is you have to care enough or have the intention to even want to get better at caring. It sounds like a tautology of some kind, but I think, that special thing that separates the truly thoughtful leaders from everyone else. And, we can talk about it, read about it. Like you say, you can read, but until you get out on the court or until, you sit and reflect, meditate, pray, just sit quietly with your thoughts and ask yourself those hard-hitting questions like, do I care enough to learn to be more caring? Then nothing really changes. And, this is the real sort of where the rubber meets the road, as we say in the US. We might say it here as well. I don't know. I just love the way that you lead your life. And I don't know any of your associates or your clients, but I imagine that you're just as thoughtful and caring. And that's just because, that's who you are, right?
Well, that's true. And I think part of the issue of that, and as you were talking, my mind was going to thinking a little bit deeper on the subject. If I go back to the issue on caring, I am blessed that my mother was an immigrant. She came to the United States from Austria after World War I, lived in Germany during World War I, and she had seen bad times. And she turned out to be a very caring person. So I was raised to be a caring person. Almost the flip side of that, and I think caring is not something that you get out of a book. It's something that you're going to get because of life experience. And so if I go back to my time in Vietnam, part of the reality was we needed to care for each other, because if we didn't, it could be our life that was on the line, literally. And so I think the experience could be how you were raised. It could be something that made you realize, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. I need other people. and they need me. And somewhere along the line, caring comes out into your psyche or whatever it comes out in. I don't know, out of your pores.
There's an image for you. Those of you who are driving, don't crash the car, please. That was really funny. But I think the special thing about it when people care enough to care and to care enough to take the time and do this work is they do develop the skills. And I know you have lots of skills, and we would like to make sure that we can hone in on, let's say, 2 or 3, but to leave our listeners and viewers with 2 or 3 things that you feel, Bill, today are the most important skills for the leaders listening to us right now. What would you say they are?
Oh, okay. Actually, this is easy because I'm going to only give you 2. I'm going to give you maybe 3 at most. Okay. So, based upon the book that I wrote in 2006, The Prepared Mind of a Leader, we looked at skills that were sitting out there. And there's a handful of them. I won't go through all of them. But in the course of running a course, and I've done hundreds of courses globally since then, I will say, hey, these are pretty obvious, aren't they? And people will say, yeah, of course. And I'd say, now tell me which ones aren't used here. And collectively, from whether it's China or it's Singapore or it's the United States or it's, oh my gosh, I did do one in London. I get 3 skills that come up and people say, we don't use these often enough. The first one is imagination. We don't imagine enough. And we were wonderfully imaginative as children. And then schooling and the search for the right answer drove it out of us. And so we've lost the skill of imagining. And if you look at that from a business perspective, that's all about strategy. The second one is we don't spend enough time reflecting as a skill. And part of that is businesses around the world have had a 20-year love affair with the term lean and mean. And so we have sucked time out of people's days so much that they don't have time to sit back and reflect honestly. In the United States, every now and then, I tell people, okay, and this is pre-COVID, so we were traveling a lot and we were driving. So, you can get stuck in traffic for a long time here. I would say, turn off the radio and think about your day and reflect on it. You do not have to rethink or rehear the song. What was that one I love so much? Brick in the Wall. Yeah, you're just a brick in the wall. You can sing it anyway. So spend some time reflecting. And then the third one I've already talked about is the challenging piece. We need to be willing to be challenged, especially for senior executives. They have had so much time of their life where people have fallen into the yes, ma'am, yes, sir routine that they're not used to being challenged. And so I think they need to come back to that. So those would be the 3 that I would throw on my list.
Imagination, reflection, challenge. I was getting nervous that the acronym was going to be IRS and not IRC.
I hadn't even thought about that. Okay.
Thank goodness. Okay. There's a place for everything, and that is not on our show. There's a lot more where that came from. Unfortunately, we have to wind things up here. So, wind your watch, wind up the interview, Mindy. The beauty of these podcasts is people can listen again. They can find all of the details in the show notes, in the bio. People listening now and watching, connect with Bill, follow him. And I know he will have a lot more to share, and he'd love to get to know you as well, because he's that caring kind of person, as you've seen. So I just want to say thank you so much for spending time with us today, Bill Welter.
Mindy, thank you very much. Take care.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Thoughtful Leader, and I hope it's inspired you to be more thoughtful as a leader in your business. Please consider subscribing and leaving a review. An important question for you. Do you want to create a culture of thought leadership in your organization? My best-selling book, The Thoughtful Leader, is available now on Amazon and many other sites in paperback, ebook, and audiobook formats. Please visit www.mindygk.com for more great content. That's www.mindygk.com. Speak to you again soon.